Let me paint you a picture. You walk into a room. You don't say a word. You're not trying to be noticed. You're not performing, not proving, not pleasing. Yet somehow, every eye finds you. Every man who once took you for granted suddenly feels that quiet discomfort that comes when something rare slips out of reach. That's what happens when a woman detaches. There's a shift, not loud, not dramatic, but powerful. It's that invisible energy that says, I don't need you to see me, I see myself. And in that moment, the dynamic changes. The chase reverses. Because let's be honest, men don't fall for women who cling. They fall for the woman who could walk away and still be at peace. The one who doesn't beg, doesn't barter her worth, doesn't audition for affection. She's calm, composed, centered. And that energy, it's magnetic. See, there's something deeply human about wanting what we can't control. The more you pull away from needing validation, the more people lean in to understand your silence. That's not a game. It's psychology. Detachment isn't about apathy. It's about mastery. It's emotional self-defense in a world where too many people confuse attention with love. And the truth is, when you stop chasing connection, you start commanding it. You begin to see who shows up when you stop showing up for everyone. You start to recognize who values your presence, too, and who only valued your availability. Tonight, I want to take you into that space, the mindset where power, peace, and attraction all meet. Where you learn that silence can speak louder than any argument. Where no becomes a full sentence. Where the version of you that once overgave finally steps aside for the woman who owns her worth. Because when a woman detaches, not from love, too, but from the need to be needed, everything changes. Men can't resist that energy. Not because she's playing hard to get, but because she's finally hard to forget. Detachment isn't coldness. It's control. It's the moment you stop letting your emotions run you, and you start running them. It's not that you don't care, it's that you care differently. You care with boundaries, you care with awareness, you care with a sense of self that doesn't bend every time someone else pulls away. When you truly understand detachment, you stop playing tug of war with the world. You stop reacting to every text, every tone, every shift in someone's attention. You no longer live on the edge of emotional exhaustion, waiting for someone else to decide how you should feel. Detachment is emotional sovereignty. It's knowing that your peace belongs to you, and no one else has the right to hold it hostage. Most people misunderstand detachment. They think it means shutting people out, building walls, acting like nothing matters. That's not detachment. That's avoidance. Detachment is the opposite of pretending. It's seeing things exactly as they are, without distortion. It's emotional clarity. It's being fully present but not possessed by the outcome. Psychologists call it emotional regulation, the ability to experience feelings without being controlled by them. When you're detached, you can feel love without losing yourself in it. You can face disappointment without falling apart. You can care deeply but still choose wisely. That's power. Think about how the human brain works. We're wired to seek connection, it's biological, but we're also wired to respect balance. When someone constantly floods us with attention, the brain starts to adapt, the novelty wears off. The value of that attention decreases. But when someone gives space, when there's unpredictability, when there's restraint, the brain lights up. Curiosity is triggered. The scarcity effect kicks in. We value what's not always available. That's why detachment isn't just an emotional skill. It's psychological leverage. It shifts the dynamic from chasing to choosing. You no longer send the message that you'll tolerate uncertainty, disrespect, or inconsistency just to be loved. Instead, you quietly communicate. If you want access to me, match my peace, not my pressure. This is why men, especially those used to control, can't resist women who detach. Because suddenly, the script flips. The woman who used to overthink is now calm. The one who used to explain herself has gone quiet. The one who used to chase validation is now centered in self-respect. That contrast is powerful. It creates a vacuum, and humans are naturally drawn to fill vacuums. Here's the truth: attachment makes you predictable. Detachment makes you powerful. When you're attached, you react. You overanalyze texts, second-guess silences, and try to decode mixed signals. When you're detached, you observe. You no longer rush to interpret someone's behavior. You just note it. You let people reveal themselves without interference. And that ability to stay still while the world moves is rare. There's a quiet strength in being able to say, I feel this emotion, but it doesn't own me. That's what detachment sounds like. It's not the absence of feeling, it's the mastery of it. It's emotional intelligence at its highest level, the kind that can sit in discomfort without breaking character. Think about it, who do we admire most? The people who can stay calm under pressure. The ones who don't flinch when chaos hits. The people who don't need to scream to prove they're strong. Detachment is that inner stillness. It's the ability to keep your center when someone is trying to pull you off balance. When a woman practices detachment, she sends a silent message. I don't chase peace, I am peace. And that message speaks louder than any words, louder than any act of persuasion. 2. It's an energy that says, I am not trying to convince you to choose me. I'm observing whether you're qualified to. That kind of confidence cannot be faked, because it's not performance, it's presence. Now let's talk about control. Control in this sense doesn't mean manipulation. It means self-command. When you master detachment, you regain control over the only thing you truly can yourself. You can't control whether someone calls you back. You can't control whether they see your worth. But you can control how much access they get to your emotions. And that's where real power begins. When you are emotionally dependent on someone's response, you hand them your control. Every unanswered message becomes a trigger. Every shift in tone becomes a storm. You end up reacting instead of responding. Detachment gives you that space between emotion and action, the ability to pause, assess, and choose how you want to show up. That pause is everything. It's where emotional maturity lives. It's where peace replaces panic. It's where you realize that your value doesn't rise or fall based on someone else's attention span. You begin to see that love without control isn't love, it's addiction. And detachment is the detox. Detachment also exposes truth. When you stop chasing, you see who's willing to walk toward you. When you stop trying to prove your worth, you discover who recognized it from the start. The people who fall away weren't meant to stay, and the ones who step up were simply waiting for you to stop overextending. Every relationship, romantic or otherwise, needs balance. Detachment restores that balance. It brings you back to yourself. It's the quiet reminder that you are the constant, not the variable. And the moment you embody that truth, the dynamic with everyone around you begins to change. The irony is, when you detach, you become more magnetic, because confidence without arrogance is rare, because peace in a chaotic world is irresistible, too, because people are drawn to what they can't easily shake. The woman who is calm when others would be desperate, who is still kind but unbothered, that woman radiates mystery, control, and grace. Detachment isn't something you perform for effect. It's something you become. It's choosing to live in alignment with your worth instead of your wounds. It's walking away not to punish, but to protect your peace. It's saying, I choose myself. Not because I don't love you, but because I refuse to abandon me. And once you reach that level of control, something extraordinary happens. You stop trying to convince people to stay. You stop explaining your value. You stop negotiating for respect. You become the kind of woman who no longer argues for her place in someone's life, because she's already claimed it in her own. That is the psychology of detachment. It's not distance, it's discipline. It's not rejection, it's redirection. And it's not about being cold, it's about being clear. When you master it, you stop being reactive and start being radiant, because nothing is more powerful than a woman who has learned to hold her peace when the world is trying to take it. There's a moment in every woman's life when something inside her shifts. It's not loud, not explosive, not even obvious to the outside world. But it's powerful. It's the moment she stops needing and starts choosing. The moment she realizes that love, attention, and validation aren't oxygen. They're options, too. And that shift changes everything. When you live from a place of need, you operate in survival mode. You start bending yourself to fit into someone else's idea of love. You chase approval, you tolerate inconsistency, you rationalize bad behavior, because the thought of being without that person feels worse than the discomfort of staying. You give, you overgive, and then you wonder why you feel empty. But when you finally detach from the need to be chosen, you step into the power of choice. You stop asking, will they love me? And start asking, do they even deserve access to me? That is the energy shift. Needing comes from fear, fear of abandonment, fear of not being enough, fear of being alone. Choosing comes from strength, strength rooted in self-trust. When you know who you are, you stop trying to be everything to everyone. You stop clinging to people who can't meet you where you are. You start to understand that love built on desperation will always come at the cost of your dignity. The truth is, people can feel your energy before you say a word. You can tell when someone's energy says, "Please like me." You can sense when someone's trying too hard, giving too much, losing themselves just to be seen, and it's not attractive, not because vulnerability is wrong, but because desperation distorts it. Vulnerability becomes powerful only when it's grounded in self-worth, not fear of rejection. When a woman shifts from needing to choosing, her energy changes in a way words can't describe. She moves differently. Her silence feels stronger than her old explanations. Her presence feels like a privilege, not a plea. She doesn't chase, she attracts. Because her energy no longer screams, "Validate me." It whispers, "I validate myself." Men feel that difference instantly. The same woman who used to overanalyze every text now takes her time replying, not because she's playing games, but because she's no longer on standby for anyone. She's present in her own life. She's not performing availability to earn affection. She's selective, intentional, centered. That's not arrogance, that's alignment. Here's what's fascinating about this shift: when you no longer need someone, you actually connect more authentically. Because need creates pressure. It makes you edit yourself, it makes you perform, but when you're not trying to control the outcome, you become more real. You speak your truth, you set boundaries, you let people reveal themselves. And that authenticity, paired with calm detachment, is magnetic. It makes people want to earn your time, not assume they deserve it. We live in a world that tells women to prove their worth, to show they're loyal, giving, selfless, nurturing. But the irony is, the more you try to prove your value, the less people see it. Because real value never begs to be seen. It simply exists. That's why this energy shift is so transformative. It redefines power. It teaches you that love is not something you chase, it's something that aligns. The woman who operates from choice doesn't run from love, she just doesn't collapse for it. She knows she can love someone deeply and still walk away if it costs her peace. She knows that being alone is not a punishment, it's a privilege to rebuild her energy, her clarity, her confidence. And that kind of energy, peaceful, composed, self-contained, is irresistible, because she's not trying to be chosen, she's being herself. Men can sense emotional stability. It's not about playing hard to get, it's about being hard to shake. The woman who's emotionally grounded doesn't panic when someone pulls away. She doesn't beg for reassurance. She simply observes. She understands that attraction built on insecurity never lasts, so she lets space do its work. Because she knows if it's real, space will only clarify it, not destroy it. That's the beauty of detachment. It transforms your energy from frantic to focused. You stop overthinking every word, every message, every silence. You start realizing that other people's actions aren't personal, they're patterns. And instead of reacting, you evaluate. You ask yourself, too, does this energy reciprocal? Does this connection feed me or drain me? That's when you start operating with emotional intelligence instead of emotional dependence. When you no longer operate from need, you start making decisions from peace. You choose relationships that match your standards, not your insecurities. You stop seeing love as something to win and start seeing it as something to share. You no longer hand over your time to people who confuse you. You protect your energy like it's sacred, because it is. Here's what happens when you live from choice. You start attracting people who are also whole. When you stop broadcasting desperation, you stop attracting chaos. You start meeting people who match your calm, people who don't mistake your silence for disinterest, but recognize it as strength. People who respect your boundaries instead of testing them, because your energy teaches others how to approach you. The shift from needing to choosing is really the shift from scarcity to abundance. Scarcity says, if I lose this person, I'll never find someone like them. Abundance says, if I lose this person, I'll meet someone aligned with my peace. Scarcity says, I need them to choose me. Abundance says, if it's mine, I don't have to chase it. That's not spiritual fluff, it's emotional evolution. Think of energy like a currency. Every time you beg for attention, you're spending energy on something that doesn't invest back. Every time you stay where you're not respected, you're depleting your emotional wealth. But when you choose to walk away, when you save that energy for yourself, you compound peace, you grow stronger, your presence becomes rarer, your worth becomes non-negotiable. And the irony, the moment you stop needing people is often the moment they start needing you. Because the energy of independence is addictive. People can feel it. It's calm. It's confident. It's self-contained. And it reminds them of something they crave but haven't mastered yet: emotional freedom. This is the secret most people never learn. Detachment doesn't kill love, it clarifies it. It removes the noise, the games, the emotional clutter. It allows what's real to remain and what's weak to fall away. When you stop forcing connections, you create space for alignment, and that's when real chemistry, built on mutual respect, not fear, can thrive. So if you've ever been the woman who gave too much, who waited too long, who lost herself trying to hold something together, understand this: the moment you shift your energy, everything shifts with it. You don't have to become colder, you just have to become clearer. You don't have to prove your worth, you just have to protect it. When you move from needing to choosing, you start walking through the world differently. You stop asking, will they love me? And start declaring, I love me enough to wait for what aligns. You stop settling for half effort. You stop accepting confusion as connection. You start realizing that the energy you give is sacred, and that not everyone deserves access to it. That's the power of choice. That's the peace of detachment too. And that's the moment every woman discovers she was never waiting to be chosen. She was waiting to choose herself. Respect is the foundation of every healthy connection, and boundaries are what build that foundation. Without boundaries, there is no respect. There's only comfort, convenience, and eventually resentment. The truth is, attraction may draw someone in, but it's boundaries that make them stay with respect. Because boundaries communicate something deeper than words ever could. They say, I value myself enough to protect my peace. When you start setting boundaries, the world will test you. People who benefited from your lack of limits will resist. They'll call you difficult, distant, even cold. But what they're really saying is, you're no longer easy to take advantage of. And that's exactly the point. A woman who knows where she stands doesn't lose people, she loses parasites. Boundaries are not walls. Walls block connection, boundaries direct it. They tell others how to love you, how to speak to you, how to treat you. They are the blueprint of your self-worth. And here's the thing: when you have no boundaries, you end up teaching people that your needs are optional. You show them that you'll tolerate disrespect as long as they throw you crumbs of affection. You convince them that you'll always be there, no matter how little they give. That kind of energy doesn't create love, it creates complacency, too. But when you begin to set boundaries, something powerful happens. You stop settling for attention and start requiring intention. You stop explaining why something hurt you and simply remove yourself from the space where it keeps happening. You stop negotiating for the bare minimum. You stop mistaking sorry for change. You begin to realize that protecting your energy isn't selfish, it's sacred. And here's what's fascinating. Boundaries are one of the most attractive qualities a woman can have. Because boundaries communicate strength. They show that you are not afraid to walk away. They tell the world that your love is valuable, not desperate. Men respect women who respect themselves. It's human nature. People value what they can't easily possess. When you set boundaries, you're not saying, I don't care. You're saying, I care enough about myself to not accept less than I deserve. There's something magnetic about a woman who can say no with calm confidence. It's not anger, and it's not arrogance, it's authority. She's not playing games, she's holding standards. And in that stillness, she radiates power. Because when you stop trying to please everyone, you start pleasing the right people, the ones who recognize your worth without testing it. Let's talk about why boundaries create attraction from a psychological perspective. The human brain is wired to respond to limits. Think about it: when something is scarce, it becomes valuable. When access is earned, it's appreciated. Boundaries work the same way. When you're available to everyone, all the time, your presence loses its weight. But when you set clear standards, when your yes means something because your no means something, people begin to take you seriously. You become memorable. Boundaries also filter energy. They reveal who's aligned with you and who's only attached to your convenience. The moment you start saying no to things that drain you, you start attracting people who don't need to be convinced to treat you right. Because energy recognizes energy. Calm attracts calm. Self-respect attracts respect. Confidence attracts effort. The woman who knows how to set boundaries is not intimidating. She's inspiring. Many women fear that setting boundaries will make them seem unkind or unapproachable. But the opposite is true. Boundaries create safety. They allow genuine intimacy to flourish because both people know where the lines are. When you communicate your limits, you remove confusion. You build trust. You create a container where love can exist without chaos. Without boundaries, there's no clarity. And without clarity, there's no connection. 2. Boundaries are also how you teach people how to treat you without ever raising your voice. Your consistency becomes your communication. When someone crosses a line and you calmly step back, that silence speaks volumes. You don't need to argue. You don't need to lecture. You simply act. Because words may inform, but actions enforce. And that's what earns respect. Here's a truth that every woman eventually learns. 2. The moment you start enforcing your boundaries, you'll lose people. But you'll find peace. And the peace you find will be far greater than the company you lose. You'll stop feeling drained because you're no longer giving access to people who haven't earned it. You'll stop explaining your worth because it's written in how you move. A woman without boundaries becomes emotionally bankrupt. She gives, and gives until there's nothing left. But a woman with boundaries is abundant. She gives with discernment. She gives from overflow, not depletion. She knows that protecting her energy is how she preserves her ability to love fully. Boundaries are not about control. They're about clarity. They're not about pushing people away. They're about creating space for what's right to stay. The woman who sets boundaries is not detached from emotion. She's in command of it. She knows when to engage and when to retreat. She knows that silence can sometimes be the most powerful response. She understands that access to her time, her energy, her body, her mind, those are privileges, not entitlements. And here's what happens when you start to embody this. People begin to treat you differently. They think twice before disrespecting you. They start showing up with intention because they know access isn't guaranteed. They see that your love is not cheap, it's earned. You stop being an option in people's lives and start becoming a priority in your own. It's important to remember that boundaries don't need to be explained to everyone. You don't owe anyone a dissertation on your standards. You simply set them and live by them. The right people will adjust, the wrong ones will exit. Either way you win. Because boundaries aren't about controlling others. They're about controlling yourself. They are the line between peace and chaos, between respect and resentment. And the irony, when you hold those lines with grace, not bitterness, not ego, but calm certainty, you become irresistible. Because people can sense that you're not moved by flattery or manipulation. They know they can't push you into compromising your values. That kind of composure commands attention. It's the quiet power that says, I am not for everyone, and that's exactly what makes me unforgettable. Boundaries create attraction because they reflect inner security. They show that you don't need validation. You are the validation. They show that you are not afraid of solitude. You've made peace with it. And that peace is magnetic, because in a world full of noise, drama, and emotional chaos, the woman who is steady in her boundaries becomes a lighthouse. So set them. Protect them. Stand by them. Not to punish others, but to honor yourself. Because when you start choosing respect before romance, you stop falling for potential and start standing in power. You stop chasing attention and start commanding admiration. You stop hoping to be treated well, and you start expecting it. And that's when you'll notice something incredible. The people who are meant for you will never be threatened by your boundaries. They'll be drawn to them, because they'll see what your limits say about you, that you are a woman of value, of clarity, of conviction. And that kind of woman doesn't just attract love. She attracts respect. Mystery is one of the most misunderstood yet powerful forces in human attraction. It's not about being secretive or playing games. It's about maintaining a sense of individuality that leaves others wanting to know more. Mystery is the quiet confidence that says, I know who I am, and I don't need to explain it to you. It's the art of being present but not predictable. Open but not exposed, and when it's done with authenticity, it creates a magnetic pull that no performance can replicate. Distance doesn't always mean physical space. Sometimes it's emotional space, the calm restraint that comes from not oversharing, not rushing, not revealing everything all at once. 2. We live in a world where oversharing has become normal, where people mistake constant communication for connection. But when everything is available, nothing feels special. The human mind craves discovery, not instant access. That's why distance, emotional, mental, or even physical, can spark desire in a way that endless attention never can. From a psychological standpoint, this comes down to something called the uncertainty effect. Our brains are wired to be intrigued by what we can't fully predict or control. It's why we're drawn to puzzles, why cliffhangers keep us watching shows late into the night, and why we value what feels rare. When a woman doesn't make herself completely transparent, she activates that same part of the brain. The part that says, I want to understand her. Not because she's withholding, but because she's grounded in herself. The paradox is that people think closeness builds attraction, too, but it's actually balance that does. Too much closeness too soon can suffocate desire. When there's no space to breathe, curiosity dies. Mystery needs oxygen. It needs a bit of distance, a pause, a sense of, I don't fully have her yet. That's what keeps the energy alive. When someone has to lean in to figure you out, they stay engaged. But when everything is immediately laid bare, the intrigue fades. This doesn't mean being manipulative or emotionally unavailable. It means having depth. It means not giving away your entire emotional landscape in the first few conversations. It means letting people earn the right to see deeper layers of who you are. Because what's discovered slowly is valued more deeply. Mystery isn't about creating confusion. It's about cultivating